So UFC 282 Blachowicz versus Ankalaev is going to be coming up this weekend, and I can't wait for this pay-per-view card. I know we missed out on Yuri Prochazka versus Glover Teixeira 2, which sucks, but it's still going to be a pretty good card, a pretty good main event. We've got some big fighters on the card. This is my first time looking at the card. I'm going to make it pretty quick, and this is my first time doing my predictions as well on this card. So a couple of the fighters I'm not too familiar with, because there is a couple of short notice replacements, but we'll talk about that at the time. My full card preview and predictions is going to come out in about 48 hours. So let's just get straight into it. Cameron Simon taking on Stephen Kozlow. Not too familiar with Obi-Wan Shinobi the Pillow, but he's got an incredible nickname. I love it. All of his wins, I believe, have come in like the first minute of the fight by submission. So potentially he could be, first round of the fight by submission, but a few first minute submissions, which is crazy. But maybe this guy could be live for a first round finish against Simon. But the thing about Simon, man, he's coming off a win over Josh Wang Kim, and Josh Wang Kim's just not your usual 5-1 fighter. This guy had like an almost 20 fight amateur career, Josh Wang Kim that is, and so man, he had a little bit of a comeback. I think Josh Wang Kim was looking good at the start, and then he get knocked out by Simon, and Simon, for the most part, in my opinion, is a grappler. So as long as the fight's on the feet, he probably should be pretty good against Kozlow if he was good against Josh Wang Kim. I've got to look into it more, though. I'm not too familiar with Kozlow, but I think that Cameron Simon, I should win this one here. It's a much easier matchup than the Ronnie Lawrence debut he was going to be getting. And Ovin St. Preux versus Antonio Tricoli. I'm pretty sure Ovin St. Preux shouldn't be on the early prelims, but that is what it is, man. We've got OSP taking on Tricoli, who's making his debut, and to be fair, it's a really big opportunity for someone to make their debut against someone as a big name at OSP. But one thing I found out that was super interesting about Tricoli is this guy used to fight at 170 pounds. He was 6'5", 170 pounds, which is crazy. He's moved all the way up to 205. I'm just going to go with OSP. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I haven't actually seen any of his fights aside from his submission on Dana White's Contender Series 3 years ago. This guy's fought once in 3 years. Mainly because he did pop for USADA, which is why I thought it was a little bit of a weird sign. I just find it interesting that they'll sign someone that has already failed a drug test in the past. But that's what it is. I'm going with St. Preux for now, but obviously my prediction could change after I look into the fight. Now, we get into a couple of fights now that are going to be very interesting. Jay Perrin versus Howard Rosas Jr. This is going to be an interesting fight. Howard Rosas is only 18 years old. They're giving him Jay Perrin here, but Jay Perrin, in my opinion, is just underrated. I do think Howard Rosas Jr. wins because he looked so incredible in Dana White's Contender Series and a massive step up in competition. And even then, Jay Perrin, in my opinion, potentially might even be a step up in competition off Mando Gutierrez. But Howard Rosas Jr. looked really good in that matchup, man. I think he's going to beat Jay Perrin as well. Jay Perrin's got really good wrestling. I feel like he's got underrated wrestling, and he looked pretty good in his last fight there. A lot of people thought that maybe he won. I personally thought Aichi Lung won. But he also looked pretty good against Mario Batista on super short notice. That's how he got signed. And for that, he does have a couple of good wins on the regional scene. But yeah, I've got to go with Howard Rosas Jr. here. I think he's going to maybe get a submission at some point. This guy is all action. He's got crazy cardio as well. This guy went all action for 3 rounds against Mando Gutierrez. Always looking for a submission. He had pretty slick striking as well. It's going to be interesting though, because Jay Perrin, as I said, he's got really good wrestling. So if Howard Rosas Jr. is struggling with the wrestling of Perrin, Rosas Jr. has not come against any adversity in his entire MMA career so far. So if Jay Perrin's able to kind of put Rosas Jr. in some adversity, we could get some very interesting sequences, and we might be seeing Rosas Jr. have to deal with a bit of adversity in his career. Only 18 years old, which is insane to me. That I'm happy for him, and I am. Daniel Da Silva taking on Vinicius Salvador. This is a weird fight to me because when I first saw it, personally, I thought that Daniel Da Silva wasn't in the UFC anymore. I thought I might have read somewhere that he was released after he lost to Victor Altamirano, but that's not the case. He's making a super quick comeback, and I don't like it, man. This guy took a lot of damage against Victor Altamirano. I believe he got knocked down twice, and the ground and pound at the end, it was almost like a late stoppage sort of thing. Like, this is a situation where this guy, man, he needs to sit out for 6 months. He needs to rest for a bit, but he's already coming back against Vinicius Salvador, and Vinicius Salvador is a guy that's a finisher, man. I believe this guy's got 13 finishes out of his 14 wins. Something insane like that, and he's got KO power for days. He's tall for the weight class, or at least he looked tall against Shannon Ross. He's long for the weight class anyway, with a pretty good reach as well. 70-inch reach at 125 pounds, which is impressive. 13 wins by KO, 1 win by submission. I think he's going to KO Daniel Da Silva, man. Daniel Da Silva, in my opinion, like, he's just coming back too soon, and he's been finished a couple of times in the UFC already anyway, so give me Salvador to win by... I'm going to go with KO. I mean, maybe even in the first round, considering Victor Altamirano was able to do it. So next we move on to a banger fight, Chris Curtis versus Joaquin Buckley. I don't know the odds for these fights actually. Let's quickly bring them up. That's a big miss on my end. But Chris Curtis taking on Joaquin Buckley. I like Joaquin Buckley, man. I do feel like he is an underrated fighter, and I did pick... I think I might have actually picked Imavov to win that fight. I'm not too sure actually in hindsight, but Chris Curtis, man, I'm going to be going with him, and he is the favourite on Tapology, which I think is fair enough. I think Chris Curtis should be a pretty good fighter here. Rosales Jr. is minus 250, which is crazy. Chris Curtis is the underdog. I'm still going to go with Chris Curtis even though he's the underdog. Salman's minus 270. OSP, is there any odds for OSP on here at the moment? Doesn't look like there's any odds for the new OSP fight. Yes, there is. He's a very slight favourite. But yeah, Chris Curtis versus Joaquin Buckley. I'm going with Chris Curtis. I understand why he would be the underdog, and in fact this pick might actually change because I think that Joaquin Buckley could be quite live to knock him out on the feet. But Chris Curtis just had such an incredible run to start off his UFC career, and I know that he just lost to Jack Hermansson. I know Jack Hermansson just lost recently, but Jack Hermansson's a pretty good striker, and he was looking good on the feet against Roman Dolidze before that. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting fight actually. I think my pick might change, but at the moment I'm going to side with Curtis. Rosenstrike versus Dalkaus. I've got to go with Rosenstrike by KO on this matchup here. I think Dalkaus is going to continue the Dalkaus KO loss streak. I think his brother Kyle Dalkaus is on a 2-fight KO loss streak. Chris Dalkaus is on a 2-fight KO loss streak. I think they're going to make it 5. I think Chris Dalkaus is going to get knocked out again by Rosenstrike. I know Rosenstrike had a crazy kickboxing background before he came into the UFC. Like, I'm talking like 80 wins to 10 losses or something like that. And in hindsight, like losing to Volkov the way he did, I guess isn't that good of a look. Curtis Blades is okay. Like, Curtis Blades uses wrestling to win that one. He lost to Garn in a pretty cool, somewhat not so interesting fight, but it was cool. And Chris Dalkaus, I don't know, man. This guy, he had so much hype, and I believed in this guy so much, and he's disappointed me, man. He just has. Like, I think I definitely picked Curtis Blades to beat him, but I think I actually picked him to beat Derek Lewis. I might have to look back into that, but that's how much I believed in Dalkaus, man. I really thought that he was going to be something special, and now I'm just seeing him getting KO'd. And I'm thinking Rosenstrike's going to do it, man. Rosenstrike's got that power. He's got good technique as well. He is a favourite as well, almost minus 200 favourite, which is interesting, but I understand it. Now we move on to Eric Silva versus TJ Brown. And one thing that I'm going to note here is I completely understand now why Dana White was so tentative on signing Eric Silva. I didn't realise this guy was almost 36 years old. This guy came on Dana White's Contender Series, and Dana White, and it looked amazing, finished Anvar Boynazarov in the first round. Only in the first few minutes as well by TKO, ground and pound, and he's on a massive submission streak as well. A lot of them in the first round as well, to my knowledge. Let me just have a quick look here if it's going to load. Yeah, first round submission streak. He was on a 1, 2, 3, 4 fight rear naked choke first round streak. Come out, dominated Anvar Boynazarov in 90 seconds with a TKO. And then Dana White was kind of like, oh, I don't really know if I'm going to sign this guy. And I was like, what? I don't understand. And then I found out it's because he's 36 years old. It makes sense to me now. But yeah, TJ Brown, I think he's going to get submitted by Eric Silva here. Like, TJ Brown, he was put in some difficult positions by Shailan Nurdembeki. Shailan Nurdembeki was putting him in difficult positions. Like, he was showing a little bit of a lack of a fight IQ on the ground. Like, he was making weird decisions. I think someone like Eric Silva is going to capitalize on that, man. I think we're going to see Eric Silva get some sort of finish on the ground. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be a ground and pound. I'm thinking more so of a submission, but Eric Silva's a hot prospect, man. He's 36 years old. If he's going to make something happen in his career, he's got to make it happen now. So hopefully if he gets a win here, he returns in only a few months' time and really starts to build something. But I think Eric Silva's a special fighter. It's just a shame that he's coming to MMA or coming to the UFC so late at the age of 36 years old. If this guy was like 5 years younger, 31 years old, I would be saying, like, watch out for this guy, you know, because he's 36. He's got to make something happen now. This next fight could potentially be like a fight of the night, fight of the year contender. Billy Quarantillo versus Shane Burgos, in my opinion, is like a top 5 fight of the year last year. It was just overshadowed a little bit by Gaethje versus Chandler, which was like the fight after it, I believe. I think that was a great fight. I think Quarantillo's always in good fights. He's got great stand-up. Alexander Hernandez as well is a great fighter as well. He's stepping down in weight class. I believe this is 145 pounds. He had a little bit of a run at 155. Lost to Renato Moicano, but Moicano's on a good run himself right now. He beat Mike Breeden, who took him on short notice. That's what it is. Lost to Moises. Like, the guys he's losing to are pretty legitimate. I want to see what the odds are, because I'm actually not too sure about this fight at the moment. So you're going to have to come back to me in a couple of days. It looks like Hernandez is the dog, and I don't mind Hernandez as the dog in this one here, man. Like, I'm looking at that win over Gabriel Benitez, and, that's not that good of a win anymore. A loss to Gavin Tucker doesn't look that great either. I don't think he's actually ever fought since then. I'm just going to go Quarantillo by decision, because he had such a good fight by Burgos, but I'm just going to move on quickly. I don't know, sorry. I'm going to do some research, and I'm going to come back to you guys with that one there. Edwin Shabazian taking on Dolce Lungwimbula. This is a win or nothing, man, for Edwin Shabazian. Like, this guy has to win this fight, or else it's going to be all over. Dolce Lungwimbula, same sort of situation. And one thing I love about Dolce Lungwimbula's entire career is the level of competition this guy was fighting before the UFC. It was crazy. Like, this guy's got a win over Stuart Austin, who had a run in the PFL. He beat a 16-3 opponent before he ended up in the UFC. He beat a 6-1 opponent. He's 3-0 when he fought a 4-0 guy. Like, this guy just fought good competition before he got signed to the UFC. Lost to Magomed Ankalaev, but that kind of happens. The Andre Barriault win, the Brundage win ain't that good either. Like, there's two. Brundage loss, isn't that bad actually in hindsight. But I guess at the time, I think everyone was surprised, considering he was actually beating up on Brundage, and then Brundage got like a Hail Mary submission out of nowhere. But we know how good Edmund Shabazian is on his best day. But this guy did beat Brad Tavares by KO, and who knocks out Brad Tavares? Nobody, you know what I mean? Jack Marshman's not in the UFC anymore, but a win over Brad Tavares by KO, that's aged pretty well. Like, Dricus du Plessis and Brad Tavares went to a war recently, and he didn't get a finish. He lost to Derek Brunson, who kind of exposed his gas tank. Same thing with Hermanson. Imodov ended up finishing him on the ground. Like, there's a problem with Edmund Shabazian, man. We're just seeing this guy's ground game exposed. He's a great striker with no ground game, really, but he's taken a whole year off. I like that. We know that Dolce Lungwimbula's got really good judo and a really good grappling game himself, but I think he's going to try and keep the fight on the feet. He's also very short for the weight class as well, and I think that very long arms, 76-inch reach and 5'8". Is that correct? That's crazy. But I think Shabazian, I'm going to trust him to win this fight here. I wonder what the odds are. I am trusting Shabazian, but I'm very interested to see if the odds are trusting Shabazian, because a lot of people aren't. Minus 300 favourite. Oh my goodness. I don't know how I feel about that one. I think Dolce might be a little bit live as the dog. I know he's 1-4 in his last 5, but Dolce's a good fighter, man. He does have good grappling if he chooses to use it. He's got a bit of judo. Man, everyone's on Shabazian big time. That's interesting. That's not a take that I personally have. I'm not that sold on Shabazian. It is a big step down in competition, I know, but, well, Bryce Mitchell taking on Ilia Topuria. I might go a little bit of a controversial one here. I don't know if it is going to be controversial. Let's have a look. Yeah, I was going to go with Topuria. I do think that Topuria is going to win this one, man. I like both guys as prospects, I really do. I guess there's a little bit of concern about the weight for Topuria, because he did move up to 155, got knocked around quite a bit by Joe Hurley before getting the KO. He beat Ryan Hall in a weird fight. Damon Jackson win is such a good win as well. Yes, this allows a decent win. I think that kick-started Zalal's losing streak, but Ilia Topuria is just a special prospect, man. I believe in this guy, and I believe in him a little bit more than I do Bryce Mitchell. I know it's a weird thing to say, but he beat Edson Barboza, which is cool, and that is a good win, because we do know that Edson Barboza does have a pretty legitimate ground game. He even knocks down Edson Barboza in the first round. I'm not going to take away any credit for that. He beat Andre Philly. Philly's won a couple of fights since then. Charles Rosa as well, unfortunately not that good of a well-aging winner. We might even see Charles Rosa in PFL next year. Matt Sales is just not a good win. But he's fought 5 times in 4 years. At least the thing about Topuria, man, he's fought 4 times in the 2 years that he's been in the UFC. We haven't seen Bryce Mitchell fight all that often, man, which is interesting, but I'm going to be going with Topuria. I think he's the better striker than Mitchell. I think if it's like pure grappling, I think it's going to be very even, because I feel like Bryce Mitchell is just... Jiu-Jitsu is underrated in general. This guy does have great grappling, he does have good wrestling as well, but I like the grappling of Topuria, and I think if he's going to get taken down, he's going to at least be working off his back, or at least be working to get the fight to the feet, because I do like his stand-up. It's so strange though, because it's not often you see a prospect versus prospect fight. We're talking a 12-0 versus 15-0 guy. These prospect versus prospect fights don't happen every day. I'm going to Poirier in this matchup here. I like him, man. I like him on the feet as well. I think he's going to hurt Mitchell early. I think Mitchell might end up taking him down and putting Poirier in a little bit of trouble, and then I think they're going to work their way up, and I think Poirier might finish off Mitchell like maybe in like the second or third round. That might be a weird pick. He might even be the dog. I wouldn't be surprised if it led to Poirier's the underdog at all. I'm just gotta try and find these odds on this website, man. Is there any odds on the fight, then? Or am I just blind? I feel like I might be. This might be a little bit embarrassing. I can't see any odds, man. I'm gonna assume it's like Pick'ems. It has to be something like Pick'ems, unless one of these guys is associated with Glory MMA, and they're not gonna do odds. That might make sense, but yeah, Darren Till versus Dricus du Plessis. I'm picking Dricus du Plessis. I don't like the fact that Darren Till's had so many injuries. I don't like the fact that Darren Till's just been partying. I don't like the fact that Darren Till's been taking all this time off and he's not spending it on training. I know he's training, but like we see Darren Till like just getting up to no good. I don't think like his head's in the game 100%. I think he's made a lot of money, maybe fighting UFC. I know he had that thing with Khamzat Chimaev. I don't know what it was about. I think it might have been some sort of like crypto or something, I don't know, something like that. Like, he's made a lot of money. I feel like Darren Till, I feel like maybe the motivation to fight is gone. I know a lot of people love him, man. And I know he was 17-0 at one point. I know he's like 57-0 or something as a kickboxer, but I just don't think he's the same fighter he was. Like, I think the same fighter, that's the Darren Till that showed up against Robert Whittaker shows up. He beats Dricus du Plessis, definitely, but I just don't think that it's going to show up, man. We've got Darren Till, who's been injured. We're seeing Darren Till pull out of fights. I just don't know if he's that motivated. And also, there's that rumour that he got knocked out before the UFC 279 fight in that backstage brawl. Apparently, like, there wasn't really an official source. I think Ariel Helwani tweeted it. But we know how reliable he is, which at sometimes he is, but sometimes he's not. Chris Avila apparently knocked him out backstage. I don't know if I believe that, no. It's up to you, really. But I think that Darren Till, man, I think he's going to lose to Dricus. Dricus is a good kickboxer, but I also think this guy's a good grappler as well. This guy's got a lot of submission wins in his career, and a lot of people get mad at me for saying this. But at the start of his career, he was low-key grappling. Like, we're looking at his wins. Look at his wins. He's got 9 wins by submission. No one really talks about this. The start of his career, you know, 1, 2... 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wins. It was the first 8 wins of his career, and he was winning by submission, you know. And then he come in and won a couple of good fights. Lost to Soldich, who UFC should have tried to sign, by the way. I don't know, man. I just think that we're gonna see Dricus du Plessis beat Darren Till, and I don't know how he's gonna do it. I don't really have a reason for being so confident in him. I know that Darren Till can beat Dricus du Plessis. I know that for a fact. And Dricus du Plessis, he's a weird striker. He really extends his punches, and like especially against Gray Tavares, like he kind of starts out and then he punches while he's moving in. He's throwing combinations while he's moving in. Maybe it's only something he does while he was tired, but it's definitely something I saw him do a lot against Gray Tavares. And I just think that we're going to see Dricus du Plessis beat Darren Till. I'm going to go with decision here. I just don't think Darren Till's the same fighter he was, man. Like, I don't know if I can trust him anymore, and that's just what it comes down to. It really is. Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Robbie Lawler. I'm going to go with Ponzinibbio here, and I think he's going to get a knockout. I'm just waiting for my computer to load. These are the Brave CF66 results, if you wanted to see them. Oh dear, sorry guys, I'm talking quiet. It's because it's quite late when I'm recording here. But Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Robbie Lawler. We just saw Lawler get knocked out 4 months ago by Brian Barberena. I know it was a standing TKO, and I know Lawler was looking so good. But Santiago Ponzinibbio, man, he had that time off. He was dealing with that skin disease, I think it was, or a blade disease. He come back, lost to the Leech, unfortunately by KO. Beat Miguel Baeza, which is a big moment, and he lost to split decision to Jeff Neal. Some people argue either way, but and then he lost to Mikhail Pahea by split decision as well, and that's another fight which people argue either way. Like, and now he's fighting, in my opinion, at this point of his career, we're talking about a 41-year-old Robbie Lawler here. I just don't think he's the same fighter, man. Like, he's just not, unfortunately. Like, I just think that we're going to see Ponzinibbio beat Lawler. I think Lawler's going to have a good showing, like he did against Ryan Barberena, but I do think that we're going to see Ponzinibbio take the step down in competition and have a lot of success. And I'm going to go with like a round 2 TKO. sort of thing. He's going to win the first round, but Lawler's going to have a couple of moments, and then I'm just going to go with Ponzinibbio, just TKOing him. Not like a knockout, but maybe knocking him down. A little bit of ground and pound, but it's not super heavy, just kind of like light ground and pound to let the ref know that he's done. And I'm just going with Ponzinibbio KO, then in the second round. It just is what it is. It's just a 41-year-old Robbie Lawler. I feel like if Robbie Lawler was here, I don't know if he's ever fought Matt Brown before, that would be a pretty appropriate fight for him. Just someone that's like someone that's a veteran like him, man. Like, has he like, who else is around? He has fought Matt Brown before. Like, that could be a good rematch. You know what I mean? Like, it would almost make sense. Just fighters like that, you know, the fighters that are around his age, fighters that have been around a bit. Just Ponzinibbio, I guess, is an example of that. I know, but it's just different. You know what I mean? And Ponzinibbio is probably a pretty big favorite. He is minus 400. Unfortunately, it's understandable, man. Now we've got Paddy Pimblett taking on Jared Gordon. I'm going to be going with Paddy Pimblett here. I think Jared Gordon, in my opinion, like, he could be a live underdog here because the lines is going to get taxed. People love Paddy Pimblett. He might be minus 200 now, but I'm telling you, closer to the fight night, the way that Paddy Pimblett's fans bet on this guy, you might see him go all the way down to like minus 300 or something. Like, that's just what's happened in his last few fights. Like, he's just becoming a massive favorite. Like, a couple of nights before the fights, his fans start betting on him, man, and that line, it goes. So if you're really keen on Jared Gordon, man, maybe bet him closer to the fight night is what I would recommend. But I am going Paddy Pimblett here. Jared Gordon, his durability is a little bit scary to me. He's got 4 losses by KO, 1 loss by submission to Grant Dawson, which in hindsight's not that bad. But at the same time, I just don't like that durability. I don't like the 4 KO losses that he's had in his career. His takedown defense isn't the best. I think to Paddy Pimblett, if he wants to grapple with him, he can. But I do like Jared Gordon's technical striking. I do think he's the better technical striker here because we are seeing Paddy Pimblett get hurt on the feet. We saw him get hurt on the feet against Luigi Vendramini. Not so much against Rodrigo Vargas, but Rodrigo Vargas did touch him a couple of times, if that actually means anything at all to you. But he did touch him a couple of times in that matchup. Jordan Levitt, he's not a good striker, and Paddy Pimblett looks pretty good in that matchup. Even Levitt had his moments as well on the ground, but they're trying to build up Pimblett as a massive prospect. I can see Pimblett landing clean on Gordon, but I can also see him taking down Gordon and like maybe working towards a very late submission, like a 3rd round submission or something like that. It just depends about like what Paddy Pimblett's up to. Like we've seen him balloon up to like 200 pounds. He's putting on a lot of weight. I don't know if that's going to affect his cardio or whatever. I'm not an expert on that sort of thing, but I just don't think that ballooning up and down in weight's super healthy in general. Once again, not an expert, bro. I'm like literally on YouTube right now, just making videos for fun. But I like Paddy Pimblett in the matchup. I do think he's going to get a finish over Gordon. I think he's going to boost his stock even more. I think they're going to continue feeding him better competition. Like you can't say that Jared Gordon is a free win. You couldn't say that Jordan Levitt was a free win for Pimblett either, because Levitt's a pretty good fighter himself. Rodrigo Vargas, on the other hand, was a free win for Pimblett. This would be true. It was a step down in competition from Vendramini, in my opinion. And Jared Gordon's a step up in competition from Levitt, who was a step up in competition from Vargas. So, Jared Gordon may be a live underdog here if the fight's on the feet, stays on the feet, and Jared Gordon can keep his composure. Pimblett's going to be interesting to see what kind of pop he gets from the American crowd. Molly McCann got a massive pop in New York, so I'm assuming Pimblett's going to get cheered as well, which is going to be interesting. And now we're already on to the main event. Unfortunately, Yuri versus Glover's been cancelled. Glover decided not to fight for the title, which is just a weird choice. I've got many reasons for that. If you wanted me to discuss it, I probably could make a video about it. But I feel like Glover fighting Ankalaev on short notice would have been beneficial to Glover, because Ankalaev would have been taking a 5-round fight on short notice. And I feel like if you're claiming that Ankalaev is a difficult guy to figure out, Ankalaev has been preparing for Jan Blachowicz the whole time. He's most likely to be fair striker, and now he's got to prepare and like short notice against a grappler and Glover. I think Glover would have benefited a lot from a short notice matchup against Ankalaev. But anyway, I think Ankalaev wins this one here. I just hope he's exciting, man, because I'm really worried about making Ankalaev just being a boring fighter. Like, I know he was so exciting. He was so exciting when he was fighting Ion Cutelaba. He knocked him out a couple of times. Krylov fight was good. Oostmir fight was pretty good. And then he fought Thiago Santos, man. That was such a boring fight. And then he fought Anthony Smith, and it was better. It was much better. And I'm just hoping this one's going to be good too. I think Jan's going to bring it to him, man. But at the end of the day, we're talking about 40-year-old Jan Blachowicz. We know Jan Blachowicz has no ground game. The thing about Ankalaev, though, he's not really like primarily a grappler from what I'm seeing. Like, he's a striker for the most part. In my opinion, his one loss, super late finish to Paul Craig in a fight he would have won if he didn't tap. So he low-key could be undefeated if he didn't tap. I like Magomed Ankalaev in the matchup, man. I think he's going to beat Jan Blachowicz. I think he's going to avoid the power. And I think he's going to work Jan Blachowicz over time. And unfortunately, I do see it being a similar matchup to the Thiago Santos fight in a way. And I just don't think it's going to be the most exciting performance. I think there's going to be a little bit of clinch work. Maybe there's going to be a couple of takedowns because Jan's ground game was exposed by Glover Teixeira. But it is Glover. I know it is Glover. And maybe you just see Ankalaev pick apart Jan on the feet. Like, it's just a weird fight where Ankalaev is just so well rounded, and I just think he's gonna have his moments anywhere the fight goes. I think especially on the ground, because I know that Ankalaev does have a pretty good ground game, although he doesn't tend to use it too much, unless he's fighting Anthony Smith. Yeah, I'm just gonna be going with Ankalaev. I think he's gonna win by late TKO. I don't think it's gonna be the most exciting fight in the world. This card is pretty good. It's not an amazing card, but I am looking forward to it. The fight night last night was really good, so it's going to be hard for this to pick up on it. But I think there's some great fights on here, man, to really look forward to. In my opinion, you should look forward to Cameron Simon's debut. This guy is a really hot prospect. You should look forward to Raul Rosas Jr.'s debut. This guy's 18 years old. Look out for Vinicius Salvador making his debut. 14 finishes at flyweight. That's unheard of and completely. Eric Silva's making his debut. So many debuts that didn't even occur to me. Mitchell versus Topuria is like the people's co-main event, you know what I mean? Because Pimblett versus Gordon, they're both unranked. I guess the same thing about Topuria and Bryce Mitchell. I don't know how highly ranked Topuria is at 145 because he went up to 155. But Bryce Mitchell is very highly ranked at 145. This should be the co-main event in my opinion, but they're really trying to build Paddy Pimblett here for good reason. They can definitely make a little bit of money off him. Maybe he can headline the next London Fight Night card. Maybe he just fights next in March on that Usman Edwards 2 card if they're actually going to do that. That could be cool. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching the video. I'm sorry it's quiet. I'm just recording late, so it is what it is. Thank you. See ya. Bye.